All rise for the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, we'll do roll call.
Don Kettering.
Here.
Gary Swenson.
Here.
Sherry Lowe.
Here.
Joel Healy.
Here.
Dan Quinn.
Here. Are there any commissioners that need to abstain for a financial conflict of interest?
No.
Are there any commissioners that need to abstain for a non-financial interest?
No.
All right, next item on the agenda is the approval of the agenda. Are there any additions or corrections at this time?
No.
Entertain a motion for approval of the agenda.
So moved.
Second.
Motion and a second. Further discussion. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion pass. Take this time before a public comment. I just would like everybody to know that our auditor has had a tough time these past couple weeks. She's lost both her brother and her husband. So I'd ask everybody if we just take a moment of silence and pray for Mrs. Hoyam in her time of need. Thank you. Next item on the agenda is public comment. Is there anybody at this time who'd like to make a public comment? We've reserved 10 minutes at the beginning of the meeting. So if anybody would like to address the board about an issue, now would be the time. Going once. Going twice. Okay, at this time we will close the public comment session. Next item on the agenda, item number 4, claims January payroll. Are there any questions on?
I'll move payment of the claims.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Further discussion. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passed. Next item on the agenda, item number 5, old jail issues and jail contract renovation. Sheriff, welcome.
Guess I'll be the first to address this board at the new meeting time.
Yeah.
I think all of you probably received the packet that I sent out to you, and I hope you had time to take a look at it. I'll kind of just go over a little bit what's in there. Back in November, we started experiencing issues with the plumbing in the old section of the jail that was built about 44 years ago. We called in Wellful Construction. They came in and scoped it with cameras underground and found that the plumbing infrastructure in the old section was collapsing or disintegrating, and they wouldn't go any further without an architect taking a look at what was happening. Tonight, Jim Schramm is here for the questions that I can't answer. So, he found that what we're going to need to do is remove all the existing concrete flooring in the old jail, which essentially is destroying what's there, and to get at the plumbing and fix it. If the commission decides to go that route, recommend just a complete renovation of that section of the jail. It's going to be demolished anyway and bring it up to standards, today's standards. We have a couple options I think I laid out. One is just to close that section. That section houses about 30 female inmates, can hold 30. We average 20 to 28 inmates in there daily. Most of them are federal inmates, which we get paid to house. If we close that section, we would probably lose in the neighborhood of $750,000 in revenue that comes into the jail. I just, 28 inmates times $70 times 30 times 12, it's simple math. The architect's estimate to fix that section is roughly $391,000. The good thing, about 7 years ago, I started asking the commission to set aside monies just for this purpose. If we had problems like this, we have about $940-some thousand in that fund right now. It's a restricted fund to be used for capital improvements to the jail. So the money's there. It'll just be your decision how you wish to proceed.
And for the audience, how old is that portion of the jail?
About 44 years. I believe it was built in '75.
It's seen a lot of use in those
It
years.
has. I mean, that was the whole jail at the time it was built. Capacity was 30.
Does it have cast iron, is it cast iron piping that's failing, or what is going on exactly?
Yeah, I didn't see the scope on it, but
Okay.
I would assume it's cast.
Okay, just at the end of its useful life, it gets a lot of,
It'd go to PVC now.
yeah. Okay. This is a repair that should make that jail live much longer, so. Aside from plumbing, are you planning on doing any other type of renovations?
Since you'd be taking out walls to take out the floors, what we'd go to the style used now is dormitory style housing instead of individual cells for your violent offenders. It's safer, you can see everybody, and that's the new part of the jail. Several of the pods are that style, and we'd anticipate making this one the same.
Bringing it up to modern.
Correct, yeah.
So when you gave us the tour, which was really good, we were in this section.
Yes.
That's correct.
Yes.
Now, when you renovate it, will you still have the same capacity as before?
I think it'll go down to 27, and now it's 30 and 27 with
The other couple cells are.
yeah, increasing. We had to add a couple isolation cells, and they have to be so many square feet
Yep.
to meet standards. So, yeah,
Yeah, I see 24 inmates in the dorm area, and then looks like 2
there
max
it is.
cell, max security, and then 1 ISO cell.
right.
Is there any way we can increase that?
We're at our, square footage wise, we're at our numbers.
Okay.
We're actually taking part of a maintenance closet. That's if you choose to go with the renovation, it'd probably need a action tonight allowing the architect to, advertise for requests for proposals. It has to be bid, of course, since it's over the $50,000.
Yeah, I think, it's worth getting some bids and see where they come in and
Yes.
how feasible this is.
This is a real key part of the jail too. I don't, it's actually funding some of, we're actually making a few dollars off of it, so I think we need to repair it, and you and the previous commissions have done a great job of putting money away for this, specifically this purpose, and
I don't know
That's
if
great.
I don't remember if you said, but for the audience, we're looking at about $400,000 for the renovation. So, and that, there's more than enough in that fund that's been set aside.
The
So
fund
it would
has,
not come out of a.
the fund is pushing $1 million, and that money just came from the revenue that the jail has brought in. It's not any general fund monies that,
Right.
I move approval of the recommendation to repair the jail.
Second. And did you need one just for a bid as well?
No, I think if,
Is that going to be good for you?
yeah, I think he can move forward. That's,
All right.
I have a motion and a second. Is there further discussion?
I guess my only concern is if it comes in way higher,
you know, we pump the brakes and relook at it, but.
Yeah, and you have the right to reject any, you know, any and all bids. So,
Right.
you know, if it comes in way high, then, you know, have to change plans.
It's just nice to see a department operating in the green instead of the red.
Well, a lot of that is luck.
All right, I have a motion and a second. Is there further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passed. Thank you very much, Sheriff.
Yes. I have one other item.
Got that.
Okay.
Just a renewal of a contract with Bonham County. We house their prisoners, and the old contract expired, and they have a new sheriff. Nothing's changed in it. It just needs your approval and signatures. So,
Do you have the original?
I do, yeah. A new original.
This is the contract for holding prisoners from Bonhomme, is that correct?
Yes, and it doesn't amount to, I mean, a great number, it's just, but
Any questions?
I make a motion to approve the contract with Bonhomme County.
Second.
Motion and a second. Further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passed.
okay,
Thank you, Sheriff.
You bet.
We're going to go back for a second and approve the minutes of the January 22nd and 28th commission meetings. The 28th was the special meeting on the James River Bridge. We haven't approved the minutes yet, so.
That's how we do.
Are there any corrections to the minutes?
Nope.
I'd entertain a motion to.
Don's got
Yep.
something.
I wasn't here, but in reading the minutes, I noted that we took an action to require all conditional, CAFOs to apply for CUP. And I think, discussed with Rob, I asked Rob, because it was a practice we followed in the past, I think that has to go before public, before it could be passed, because you're passing on the comprehensive plan.
I guess my understanding was
public
it
notice.
did not, because the
We're not
ordinance
changing
is
any wording.
Changing.
On the comprehensive plan.
You're changing the entire concept on the Class F. And I'm not opposed to what you're doing, I'm just saying the procedure that you did it in according to Rob, he was supposed to be here, required 2 notifications in public discussion. But I'm just putting that out.
Okay.
Is it all right if we delay this conversation until Rob gets here?
By me.
Would that be okay?
We're on the approval of the minutes, I guess, so do we still want to approve the minutes?
Well, the minutes are the minutes.
The minutes.
That's
yeah,
it.
we
Minutes
made-
are already
we
what
made
happened,
minutes,
so-
But, yeah.
So, all right, so is there a motion to approve the January 22nd meetings and 28th meetings?
So moved.
Second.
Motion and a second. Further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
I abstain.
Motion passed. All right, is the auditor, or is she here yet?
Lori?
That's not for, is Chelsea Larson here? Okay. And- All right, next item on the agenda, item number 6, partial abatement for Chelsea Larson. Hello, introduce yourself.
Hi, I'm Chelsea Larson. I'm here asking for a partial abatement for my property taxes for 2018. I guess I thought I had everything I needed in order, but I did not have the form filled out for owner occupied. I did occupy that residence the whole time. I went and made a payment the year for 2017, and I had asked if I was owner occupied, and they had said yes. Looking back, I don't know if they were referring to 2017. I got the assessment letter they sent out in March, and there was no difference there. Nothing that was showing that it was not owner occupied. And then I got my forms for this year and noticed they went up about $560, and looked into it and realized I didn't have the owner occupied form filled out that I needed. Feel like it was a misunderstanding on my part maybe, but I thought I had everything I needed in line, and I did occupy that residence the whole year.
Sure. I'm just reading through your form here. We've got a copy of that too. Is Lori here?
Yeah, is Lori here?
I don't think she's here yet.
Okay.
We've got a letter here from,
Yeah, okay. Maybe she's supposed to.
from the equalization
Okay.
office,
Okay.
and their recommendation is to not abate.
They submitted a memo to us. I'm going to read a little bit to you so you know what it says. It said on December 14th of 2017, Joan Colson came to the equalization office and made a request to update the mailing address on the parcel to be sent in care of Chelsea and Adam Larson. Mrs. Colson let me know that the property was being sold on contract to Chelsea. The contract was unrecorded, which means it's not on file at the Register of Deeds. I informed her that the property could qualify for owner-occupied status if, 1, a copy of the unrecorded contract is provided, 2, a completed owner-occupied form is provided to equalization. Mrs. Colson took an owner-occupied form for her daughter to complete and left a copy of the unrecorded contract with me. I advised her we would need the completed form for the proper property classification to change. They sent you an assessment notice on February 28th of 2017 to Thomas Colson in care of Chelsea and Adam. This property was listed as residential, not owner-occupied, so that would have been February before the December letter. The deadline for filing an owner-occupied form for the 2018 assessment was March 15, 2018. The owners had not filed a completed form with equalization as of that date. The property remained classified as non-owner occupied for the 2018 assessment. The property owner could have appealed the property classification by filing an appeal with the auditor by April 3rd of 2018. No appeal was filed. And she said, so now it's 2019 and taxes have been billed. On January 24th, you filled out the owner-occupied form and has requested a partial abatement. So that kind of catches you up with what she has relayed to us.
Yes, my mom did give me a form and say, make sure you're owner-occupied. So when I paid my taxes for 2017, when I paid them, I asked, are we owner-occupied? And they had told me that we were. So I thought that was good to go then.
And was that in April or October?
April.
April.
And the letter they sent, are you talking about the assessment that says it was listed as what? Residential?
In care of, assessment notice was mailed February 28, 2017.
Because I did get that and I haven't, and nothing on here was a red flag. Nothing on here states that it wasn't owner occupied. Like I said, when I paid them in April, I asked and.
Can you show me what you're referring to?
This, the value hadn't changed at all from the year before.
No, this one won't list it.
And then the new thing they send, it doesn't, the new one they sent this year, I was still confused where it doesn't say on here non-owner occupied. There's just a little line that says other. So when I talk to them up there, they say that's what says you're non-owner occupied. But even this year, I'm like, why did it go up so much? And I asked my mom, and she's the one that started, I think that probably that status, we weren't owner occupied.
Okay.
Did anybody else want to see
I'll
that?
take a look.
I guess I don't know. I just moved here from Colorado and my property taxes were different there. They were just worked into our mortgage. I didn't have to worry about the owner occupied, and when we bought it on contract for deed, I really thought that we were in line and everything was good to go.
And you had occupied the home the whole time?
Yes, actually in 2017 we moved in.
Do you want to wait for Lori?
I don't know if she's
I
coming.
don't know if she is coming or
I don't think, that's why she's doing.
She's not on
Is
the
that why?
agenda.
Okay. Don, can I ask you if you have any precedent on this, since you've been doing this a little longer?
We've usually followed the recommendation of the staff.
Staff?
And I think the concern Lori had put in here, that because it's been billed, it's been budgeted. So essentially, those dollars are spoken for. That's probably the major dilemma, I guess, the question on.
I don't, that part, I read that. That part doesn't bother me. What bothers me is the precedent it sets.
Sure.
And there was a process, it was followed by the office.
Yeah, I'm her mom, Joan Colson, and,
Come on up, ma'am.
no, that's not so easy to do
Oh,
right now.
I
but,
apologize.
You know, when we sold her that house on contract for deed, you know, I thought I had done what I had to do. Like, you know, I went up there and explained that to him. And are you saying that there needs to be a recorded contract of deed up there yet, or?
No, I think what she's saying is the form was never submitted in a timely fashion.
The owner occupied form was never submitted, is what I'm reading.
Yep.
The contract for deed is not the question, I don't believe.
Okay,
No.
so we're good on that. Well, yeah, we, you know, thought we'd done what we had to do, but I guess that was our fault. But, you know, we closed on that house April 27th, and they moved in May 1st, so, you know, she has been in there the whole time.
Okay.
It's never been unoccupied, other than by owner.
Thank you.
I'll give that back to her.
Well, I guess I'd entertain a motion.
I'll move we accept the recommendation of Lori Mackey, Director of Equalization, to not abate the tax.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Further discussion? Roll call vote, please.
Don,
Yes?
Gary,
Yes.
Sherry,
Yes.
Joe,
No.
and Dan.
No. Motion passed. Right, next item on the agenda, item number 7, Annual Register of Deeds Report. Brian Hunoff. Welcome, Brian.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. You've each received a copy of this report, I believe. I just thought I'd just go over a couple of high points. Shouldn't take more than a couple minutes. Our office had over 8,500 transactions last year, and that's a combination of vital records like birth certificates and death certificates. We also had land records, copy requests, and liens filed, so those all added up to over 8,500 individual transactions. We were up higher than usual in death certificates and birth certificates. We had about 1,300 each of those. Second page, we collected $296,479 in fees, which is a 5-year high, and $93,000 more than we spent, so we came out in the black, I guess, if you look at it like that. We collected $40,968 in copies revenue, which is a new office record by about $8,000. And we spent I said we collected $296,479. We spent $203,522, so we came in about $15,000 below budget. We had $109 million last year in real estate sales in Yankton County, which is our second best year ever. 2017 we had $111 million, and I was thinking we were going to top that, but December slowed down on us, so we came up with our second best year ever, which is still, nothing to sneeze at. That means we had $220 million over the last 2 years, which is by far the best 2-year span we've ever had. Of course, that covers home sales, commercial property, and farmland. In 2018, our month-by-month real estate sales, our worst month was January. Last year we had $3.5 million, and that's really what kept us from setting a record, because that's a very bad month for us. Normally we average about $9 million. And this past January that's just over, we had over $7 million, so hopefully that's an indicator of how it's going to go the rest of the year. It's, that's twice as good as we did in January 2018. Some of the different liens that are filed with our office, we had 810 county liens, 111 state liens, 23 hospital liens, 15 federal liens, and 4 mechanic liens. Of the 810 county liens, 413 were for poor relief, 371 were for court-appointed legal counsel, and 26 were for ambulance services. The next few pages
Can I stop
Sure.
for a second? How does that stack up
the county liens, that's probably about average.
Okay.
Maybe a little bit higher than the year before, but generally that 800 number is,
those aren't necessarily good things.
that's a lot.
to see in the-
It's a lot of liens. We end up usually getting about maybe a third to a half of those satisfied eventually. And when we get those, normally is when somebody's trying to buy or sell a property, and that's when we have leverage on them to collect. And so but about half of them never do get paid, unfortunately. So the next few pages is just kind of some community statistics, and some of this is numbers from my own office, and then I reach out to a couple other sources to give you kind of an overall picture of how we're doing in things like birth, death, marriage, and divorce. So we had 525 births at Sacred Heart Hospital. That's an 11-year low. We had been doing real well 2014 through 2017, but last year it dropped off some. We had 247 in-county deaths, and what I mean by that is that could be an out-of-county resident that died here in an accident or something. So we have 2 sets of death numbers. We have deaths that occur here, and then we have county resident deaths. And the county resident deaths, that could be somebody who's a resident here but dies in Las Vegas, or somewhere, and then that would be in that number. And that's a number I've been kind of keeping an eye on because it's been going up. Our yearly average for county resident deaths from 2000 to 2013 was 199 per year. In these last 5 years, we've averaged 240 per year, so that's a significant jump, 20% jump. And I asked the South Dakota Department of Health for kind of a breakdown on what was causing the increase. And the good news was cancer deaths are on the decline, at least in this past 6 years. That's the span I asked for. Cancer deaths are on the decline, but diabetes-related deaths, respiratory illness-related deaths, suicides, and accidental deaths have all been on the increase in the last 6 years. So that's the reason those numbers have gone up. We had 161 marriage licenses last year. That's below our 12-year average. But the good news is we also had a 12-year low in divorces, with only 50 last year. When I say divorces, I'm talking about divorce decrees that were completed, not necessarily just initiated. So we had, one way to look at it, we had 3.2 marriages for every one divorce, so that's a positive. And finally, our population, this is just simply a Census Bureau number that anybody can get off the internet. As of July 1st, 2017, we had 22,662, and if you look at us through the decades, we've had very slow but steady growth, very incremental growth. I haven't been able to get the July 1st, 2018 number yet. I expect to have that in the next month or so. So that's just kind of a snapshot of the county seen through our office. And you have any questions? No? Okay.
No, I appreciate how thorough you are, Brian. And,
Thank you.
And I got an email about you, and I think it's appropriate that this is the first 6 o'clock meeting, and it said to congratulate you, because in 2002, that was something that you started, is having later meetings to allow more public access, and by the way, we have a pretty good crowd here.
Yeah, and I think
that is continuing, so.
Let me compliment you for doing that, because it's important. It might be slightly less convenient perhaps for the department heads, but for the people it's more convenient. And that's what these meetings are supposed to be for, is for the people. And so I commend you for doing that. First time I got them to do that was actually 1999. They gave me one evening meeting a month. And then in January 2000, they made me chairman, but they also punished me by taking away my night meeting. And then we kind of go off and on for a while, but we haven't had them for quite a while, anything at 6 or later. So I commend you for that.
Yeah, I'm visiting with most of the surrounding counties. I believe they're all at 9 o'clock on Tuesday, and that really affects certain people's ability to attend.
Or to run for the office.
Oh, yes.
You know, that's a big thing too. You know, if you want to open it up for everybody to run, you can't have daytime meetings. So that's important. And I think it's important in that open government area to be accessible to people as much as possible. And most people work during the day, so nighttime is obviously, that's why the school boards and city commissions meet at night, obviously. And you don't hear their department heads or principals complain about attending a 6 o'clock meeting, so I don't think that's too much to ask.
Hey, Brian, all this information with your picture on it, is that public record?
Yes, it's published on our website. It's on my webpage, which is obviously available to the public.
Sure.
So,
Any other questions for Brian? All right, we appreciate the work you do
Thank you.
for Yankton County. Thank
appreciate
you.
it.
Next item on the agenda, item number 8, spring load limit discussions. Mike? Welcome.
Hello. This will just pick up from last time, I guess. For spring load limits, we have two proposals, I guess, two different ones. We could, last year, and what we've done is, what we did last year, I guess, was 6 tons per axle, 80,000 pounds gross, and anything over 80,000 pounds gross or over 6 tons per axle, there was a $100 fee, then 45 cents per ton per mile. On top of that, anything over 86,000, then the additional fee would be $25 for every 2,000 pounds over 86,000.
Can you refresh my memory why we went to 6 tons? Last year was the first year we went to
Last year was the
six,
first year.
Was that state recommendation or
Like
what?
neighboring counties, I know one for sure is doing that. except they do not have the overweight limit fee, so. And that's the other option I have, I guess, is just 6 tons per axle. So,
No exceptions, just 6 tons.
just 6 ton. I guess I would recommend the one with the overweight fee for 1 more year at least, and then I guess next year we can go from there.
I think you said, Mike, it was like $700 that he got out of it. It was like a couple of loads of asphalt. I mean,
Right,
it's
roughly.
Pretty small amount, isn't it?
Yep.
I think we ought to increase it to make it worthwhile.
Okay. Yeah, we can.
Did you explain to the citizens if they were going to get a permit, the process, how they would do that?
Process fee, you can either, I guess the main way to do it would be to stop in the office and fill out a form and
Contact you and?
contact I or the secretary, and it's pretty simple, I guess. I think last year we had a total of about 9.
Okay. Were you looking for a decision tonight on this?
Yeah, if I
So
could.
it's a little under $100 an application is
Yeah.
where we're at. Well, I certainly think we need to have an option for keeping transportation going and commerce going. You know, just shutting it down, I don't see that as working very well. People will be out there anyway, so.
Typically, how long when you put a load limit on?
It all varies. There's been times where we put them on in February and they didn't come off until the end of April. It just depends on the year. If you
Yep.
see moisture coming out of the cracks in the road, you know the frost is coming through, and that's, you need the load limits need to be on once the guy sees that.
Yeah, explain why load limits are important during those times of year for everybody.
Well, preservation of the roads, well, the frost comes out of the ground in the spring, you know how that is, it's mush. Asphalt ain't gonna take that, you're gonna destroy what we have.
So this is an effort to preserve the infrastructure
Correct.
that we have. Okay.
I think we lowered it based on surrounding counties in statewide. There was some data brought up on how many counties in the state were at the 6 ton, and a significant number of the counties were at that level. Very significant.
I think it was recommended by
And it was also recommended by,
LTAP.
yes.
Yeah, I was thinking it was 50% of the counties had went to 6 tons.
Yeah. So, based on the deterioration of our roads and the lack of funds, we wanted to make it last as well as we could.
Correct.
And heavy trucks are, as I understand it, or heavy tractors or equipment, are the most detrimental to the roads
Yep.
of anything. Like, how many car miles equal one semi-mile? It's in the thousands.
Yep.
So it's pretty important, I think, that we address the load limits.
Would it make sense to look at axle configurations while we're talking about this too?
What's that?
So would it make sense to look at axle configurations while we look at this too?
I like the 80,000 pounds that kind of limits the, I call it a centipede truck.
Right. I know LTAP had that printout, you know, a five axle combination truck does much more damage than a 7. even, carry with the same amount of weight per axle, because they're bringing those closer together.
Right.
And so, I don't know if we keep it simple or if we want to introduce that. But
Last year, the biggest challenge, I think, that I recall was the hay grinders. And, I assume that everybody ground 2 months' worth of hay, so they don't have that problem this year.
you know what they say about assume, right?
Yeah. Would anyone care to make a public comment on this? Come on up, Zane. Introduce yourself.
Zane Williams from Irene, South Dakota. Last year, we had the same discussion when I was up here, and you're right. What we were talking about is undivisible loads, and that's the key there. I mean, if you can load your truck lighter, put on 650 bushels versus 900, you can get it down. Those hay grinders could not break it down, and there's no way to put that third axle on there. We have over 200 livestock producers, cattle producers that rely on that service every month. They're grinding at home right now. And so it's impossible to grind 2 months worth in rain and snow. So I think that has to stay in to have them permits for those, the undivisible loads. That's what I got.
Zane made a good point. These are undivisible
Right.
loads, not the divisible loads.
Anyone else care to make a public comment on spring load limits?
And that's what the permit fee is for
That's what the permit fee is for.
non-divisible loads.
Sure.
Can you say those permit fees again, please?
Be $100 for over 80,000 and 45 cents per ton per mile. Anything over 86,000 would be an additional $25 for every 2,000 pounds over 86,000, plus the 45 cents per ton per mile.
Like I said, you collected $700 last year. I think it needs to be raised. It's hardly worth all the paperwork and
You have a recommendation, Gary, what would you want to raise it to?
well, like you said, $700 to buy a couple loads of asphalt. It might sound terrible, but, double it.
Small loads.
Yeah.
There's only going to be a few.
Yeah. And part of the reason we're having these discussions so far out is to let people know that these load limits are going to be here probably sooner than later. I hope the groundhog's
Right.
in shadow, so it'll be sooner. And if there are these heavy loads, they can haul them now and avoid the damage and avoid paying the extra
Yep.
money, so.
Do you have any recommendations on fees? I mean, does the highway department feel this is justified?
That's just it.
I mean, we
It
gotta-
just
there's-
depends on if there's damage, what.
Right. I think there's a happy medium. I mean, if you make it unobtainable, nobody's gonna get one anyways.
Right. That's-
Maybe $700 wasn't enough last year, but we can't,
And the breakups that we had, was it from that,
If you listen to the experts talk about it, you aren't gonna charge somebody enough to pay
Right.
for the damage. It just
Right.
isn't gonna happen. So I think your comment about commerce and being reasonable is a good comment.
yeah.
yeah, we're not gonna pay for everything.
You're not gonna pay for the damage.
We want to just keep it at the same amount, and we could revisit this
Well, I don't
more next year.
object to Gary's increasing it some.
Okay.
But I don't think you can possibly think you're gonna pay for it.
No, sure, no.
Like
Yeah.
Joe said, we want to have it at a price where somebody is going to pay it and not try to risk it either, because we don't want that, so.
Gary, did you have a suggestion?
Well, just like I said before, $700, is $1,400 out of line over How many were applied for it last year to get that $700?
9.
I believe there was 9 total.
It's under $100 a person,
Yeah.
essentially.
So,
And if we increase it, there'll be less than 9 apply for it. And we have no way to enforce it.
Instead of increasing it, can't you just do a?
Come on up, if you'd like to say something. Introduce yourself, please.
Jesse Schmidt, owner of Jesse Schmidt Farms and Trucking. Instead of having increments the way that it's set up per mile and everything else, why can't you do just bulk flat rate permits during the frost? Instead of, so if every 2,000 pounds you're over, you just pay $50 and you just permit for the whole frost. It would make it easier. You'd probably have more people that abide by the law, and it'd simplify his job and everybody else's job.
We kind of touched on that a little bit. My only hesitation with that is I talked to some out-of-county contractors, and they said they would be fine with something like that, but, if they go through 6 counties and all of them had a flat rate that was higher than what they would be hauling, let's say it's $500, they're not gonna pay $500 in 6 counties.
But our permit doesn't
But-
carry over to other counties anyways. So all we're addressing really is Yankton County's permits.
Right.
So if somebody's running around with 86,000 pounds, like these hay grinders, and stuff, they get a little heavy. If they just pay one time, one flat fee, and they carry around a permit in their truck, they're good, they're legal, as long as they're in Yankton County.
Sure.
It's really cut, dry, and simple. You simplify things, people are more likely to
Right.
abide by it and do it.
Right, we
true.
want a simple process.
And then in that same process, you'll produce more revenue because people are more likely to abide by it.
Yeah, I don't think that the number of trucks on the road are gonna change, it's the number of
No.
permits we're gonna have.
The job's gotta be done.
Now, that's just for divisible loads.
Non-divisible.
Non-divisible, non-divisible loads we're talking about.
What are your thoughts on that, Mike?
I guess my thoughts on that, I like the more simple fee. The only thing I don't agree with would be a one-time permit for that season. Because you just gave them a permit to go round and round and round.
Now, when they come in for this, you talk about haul routes in this
Yep,
process.
there'll be specified route.
Okay.
Sorry.
Got it. Okay. Well, I guess we're looking for a recommendation from you. What do you recommend to us?
You got me on the spot there.
Yep.
I guess maybe a guy wants to do away with the 45 cents per ton per mile and maybe goes straight to a $200 fee. Simplify it that route, and then we still specify their haul route. And it is still a one-time fee instead of a free, a permit just to run the rest of the season.
That doesn't make it simpler, so.
Would you still include the additional 25 for every 2,000 pounds over 86,000 then?
Yeah, I would say.
So let's go down that, if it's $200, is that for the season, but they still need to stop and
No.
haul routes? Is that every time they need to move
It's
it?
every time they need to move. This permit is for one way in and one way out.
Okay.
Or we,
Which would be about in line with Gary's double.
Yep.
We were about $100 before.
and I agree, the simpler the better.
Mhm.
With you, Mike.
So that's your recommendation for us? We have a motion?
I gotta ask, how did they do it last year with these heat grinders? That's one way in and one way out. They bought it for the season.
We had numerous, that was the majority of the permits last year was the hay grinder.
Right. Yeah, they got 4 or 5.
Yep.
But they go to many places in a day.
All right, hey, if you guys are going to talk, come up and say it. Did you want to say something, sir?
Yeah.
Come on up, address the board. Let us know who you are.
Richard Hauk from Utica. Last year, we got 4 permits, but they were an annual permit,
They were.
and we didn't have a specified route. But we're grossing 50,000, so we're well under the 80. So I don't know,
See, I seen you had 4 or 5 permits.
yeah.
I just assumed it was,
No, that was annual. That was, we paid an annual fee, and I should have brought the paperwork, I guess, but, so hopefully it's still an option for me.
All right. Thank you.
Did you feel that worked?
yeah, it was,
Was it,
Yeah, I mean, that was our only option.
were the 4 feet permits for 4 separate rigs then?
Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you.
Because the way it's, this is what we had, right?
Mhm.
Yeah, the way it's written, it's per mile, so you would, something.
Did you want to
did
say
get
something,
added.
Patty? All right, come on up here, state your name.
Patty Gramco. I guess for the hay grinders, and there's other equipment that's, very heavy, how can they have a route when they're grinding at different places in one day? How do you, they're kind of stuck. They got to go, they're not going to go out of their way. They're going to go the shortest route to the next guy. So, yeah, they have a heavy load, but I empathize with them because that's their business. So I don't know what the answer is. I just wanted to point out that they're kind of stuck.
Thank you.
I guess what I would suggest at this point is to delay this decision 2 more weeks to our next one. I think everybody in the audience knows it's coming, and it's just the final. And I do recall last year discussions of the yearly permit for the hay grinder, and I don't remember when it happened, but it was after the original discussion on implementing this, if you remember that, Don. So I think we need to dig that paperwork out and make a final decision at the next meeting. But it's coming, so everybody's well aware, and with the cold temperatures this week, it won't happen in 2 weeks, but certainly by the end of February, we need to have this squared away.
I'd like to add, I guess, you can kind of make the assumption, but it sounds like what is most likely going on, guys are going to go the shortest route, whether we give them a haul route. I don't think we have any teeth to put into this. Maybe we just cut our losses, make it simple, take a fee, and we're spending a lot of time on the difference of $700 or
Yeah.
Yep.
or $1,500 to the county, and to the producers, we're talking $100 to $200 at the end of the day. I think if anything, this is kind of essentially a deterrent to try to get you to plan ahead and accordingly. And if you absolutely can't and you need to use it, we need to keep the roads open. So.
Let's do a continuance till the next meeting, or just
Yep,
put it on
that's
the
fine.
next meeting?
Fine
so-
with that.
Next agenda.
Is that gonna work for you? You're not putting load limits on next week, are you?
well, as long as it doesn't turn to 50 for a week straight, we'll be all right.
Oh, no.
Did you have an advertise for the bid, seating 50?
Yep, I just also need approval to advertise for 2019 supply bids.
Let's get if we're going to continuance this to the next meeting, or do we want to do a motion to put it on there, or just move it?
Just move it to
All
the
right,
next
we'll just
agenda.
move it to the next meeting. Okay, go ahead.
Just need approval from you, the commissioners, to put out for bid for asphalt oil, crack sealant, mastic sealant, hot mix, cold mix, gasoline, fuel, crushed granite, 5/8 and 3/8 crushed gravel, pre-stressed bridge decking, metal culverts, magnesium chloride water, aggregate base stabilizer, and chip and fog sealing.
Make a motion to approve Yankton County notice to bidders dated 4th day of February 2018.
Second.
Motion and a second. Further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion passed. Thank you, Mike.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
I've got a couple questions I
Yep, go ahead.
want to ask Mike. I think we all maybe got an email from Johnson Engineering. How does, he was requesting the local business to be able to do business again with the county. How do we go about notifying, or how does he get notification of bids?
It'll be advertised in the paper for the next 2 weeks. It'll be in the Press and Dakota and the Observer. If he wants to put in a bid, bids are online, or on the website, the bid notices.
I think more specifically to your point is, bridge inspections and surveying and some of that down the road. It's kind of what they were requesting and
Right.
that process, I guess.
I guess I'm not 100% sure on that right now. I assume if we want him to do some work, we have to contact him.
We don't typically put a bid notice out for bridge inspection or.
I'm a newbie here, so.
I think we have in the past, maybe not on an annual basis, but
Okay.
there was probably 2 or 3 years ago, there was a switch from Johnson to Clark, and it was based on, as I recall, based on a price issue. Second question, what's our policy on county commissioners, other county people operating county equipment?
I guess I have not checked into that. As of right now, I didn't feel I
So if I
believe-
come out and say, I want to use the road grader to grade a road, you're going to say, hell no.
I would not recommend, no, I would,
You would not allow a piece of county equipment to be taken,
right.
because there's a tremendous liability with people operating equipment that's not under our insurance. And
That'd be one of the biggest things is with the insurance.
And then secondly, my understanding is we have no legal authority to enforce local regulations as a county commissioner. I can't go out and...
Or even superintendent, that is
So
the sheriff.
It's illegal, it's a crime if I go out and enforce other public rights. And that might be a question for Rob.
The answer is yes. Don's saying correct. County commission, highway superintendent, you can't be going around and arresting people or stopping people for any violation that he believes occurred. We can't do that. It's the sheriff's office, law enforcement.
If a truck that was stopped on a road and it caused an accident and killed somebody, the county would be liable for a huge lawsuit.
Anything else, Don?
Nope.
All right. Thank you.
Mike.
Right.
Thank you. Next item on the agenda, item number 9, Government Transparency Initiative. We're going to talk about posting agendas to the Press and Decoding. I talked with the P&D. It would cost about $80 to post an agenda to the Press and Decoding. If we were interested in doing that, we have a current contract with them now for about $13,000 a year. Otherwise, it would be quite a bit more. I don't know if that is something that we want to look at doing or not. Positives are that, you know, the agendas will be available in another spot. The negative, it does, you know, it does cost money. But
What was that cost?
it's about $80 for every time we post an agenda. So, yeah, when you consider we spend well over $13,000 on other legal notices,
It's about 2,000,
for $80 every.
160 a month.
Yeah, so it's up to us if we think we want to do that or not. Right now, the agendas are posted on our website and on the door.
I know they currently advertise when the meetings are with highlights of what's in them.
Sure.
And I don't know if Patty is picking out the highlights or if she sends the agenda and they pick out the
We
highlights.
have to send the agenda.
Okay, and then they pick out the highlights. And I know that's all for
Yeah.
free.
Public service.
But not
Public
all,
service
it's not,
announcement.
that's only if space is available as well, so it's,
Better up or over waiting permits.
yeah, exactly, so.
I guess I don't have one strong way or the other. I guess I would shy away from spending another $2,000. But if there are other commissioners with opinions on that, I'd certainly sit back and listen.
I guess I haven't heard anybody say they want the agenda in the Press and Decoding, but
Yeah,
if we hear more people that like to see it, it's something we can surely look into as well, so.
Support making it easy for people, but probably not at the
Yeah.
cost of $2,000.
Okay. All right, next item was the keep or eliminate the consent agenda. I know we had talked about this last meeting. If we want to have just the consent agenda items as separate agenda items that we can pass with motions. It would be a few extra motions and may take a little bit longer, but it allows for discussion on the items where the consent agenda does not.
I haven't seen one yet where it would be cumbersome to go through each one.
I don't think so. I don't think it would, it probably wouldn't add.
Plus, you can always pull one out of the consent agenda before you discuss it.
Well, what I was saying is I haven't seen too many things in the consent
No.
agenda where, but I.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I thought
maybe
it would.
there is one that
yeah.
gets.
It would add just probably a couple minutes to a meeting. And if the meetings get too long, we could always bring it back as well. So.
The only consideration, I guess I would say, is that sometimes there's something in the consent agenda and the public wants to comment on it, and unless we move to pull it out of the consent agenda, it's there and passed, and you move on, and no one can comment. I do remember a couple meetings sitting in the audience, and there was something in the consent agenda I thought maybe should have been discussed, and it was just approved and we moved on. So I guess there would be a positive to that. If there's someone in the audience who feels maybe they have a question on something we feel is insignificant, that would be a positive.
Is that a motion? One way or the other?
Don?
I'm not opposed to eliminating the consent agenda.
Okay.
I think it has to run through it and highlight each one a little bit. It's fine.
Give it a whirl.
Okay. So do we need a formal motion on that then?
I would think
Yeah,
To
let's do a motion to.
remove consent agenda. I move to remove the consent agenda from future meetings.
Second.
Motion and a second, further discussion. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion pass. Next item, town hall meeting discussion. We had talked at the last meeting about trying to do some town hall meetings. I know I've been talking to some of the township personnel, and they would very much like to get together at least with a couple of the commissioners, and they had some issues to do. Did you have any ideas with that, Joe? I know you wanted that on the agenda. Did you have a time, or?
Well,
is
yeah,
that
I
just
think
something-
we identify
Mhm.
locations in the county. And then I would say a goal is to have, maybe 2 commissioners at each location 2 times a year.
Okay.
And it just would be just a town hall discussion. No,
Okay.
pretty informal. But I was thinking Utica, Gayville, Mayfield, probably Lesterville. And then we discussed possibly having one at like Cottonwood or out at the lake area. Anybody have any?
I think in addition to like those town hall meetings, I really think we should try to get all the township, as many of the township people together as we can, and then maybe have a meeting where we meet with the leadership of the small communities as well, and just, and that's something we can work on if there's, I don't know how we want to do this, if we want to divide it up, or if we want to just look into possible dates and bring it up at a future meeting, or how you guys want to do that. Do you have any ideas, Joe, or did you want to?
Oh, not anything specific, but I think, if I'm going to be out and about, I'd say early spring.
Early
Within the
spring.
next month.
Okay.
Either that or else we do a summer and winter type of deal. But with some of the stuff coming down the pike, I almost think we should get out there sooner than later.
Yep.
Is there any commissioners who'd want to volunteer? We should probably just do 2, I would think, would be best.
Right. We
I'm
might
good.
have to.
You're good? You could do some?
Be
and-
happy to go out.
Okay.
Be happy.
Why don't you get us maybe some potential dates, the next meeting, Joe, when you think that would work?
Dan, are you
Yes.
talking about 2 people doing every one of them?
No,
or
I think
rotate?
two, if we wanted to rotate, there might be some people who don't want to, but I think we shouldn't have any more than 2 at one of the meetings.
Yeah, okay.
Is that kind of what, did you guys did something like that in the past, did you not?
Yep.
Was it in those same 8 locations, or, and it was just 2, or did you have more there, or?
Oh, let's see, we did something in Mission Hill. I guess you'd want to address Yankton, because probably of the 23,000 residents, 18 of them are in Yankton or the lake area.
Yeah.
So I wouldn't forget them.
If you look at, you've got Utica, Gayville, Mayfield, Lesterville, Cottonwood, Yankton. There's 6, and there's 12 months, so you could do, each of them get 2 months out of the year, and you just rotate.
What about Mission Hill?
You messed my math up. That's not going to work. And that is a good idea. Thank you for that.
Just Volun too.
Yeah, and
Can't forget about Volun.
we'll have to strategize
All right.
and pick good spots for that. But certainly, I don't see any reason why you shouldn't visit each section of the county twice a year. And we've got a lot of zoning discussions coming up and a lot of projects going on in the county, and I'm sure that folks have opinions out there, and it's hard to make it to a meeting in Yankton when it's on the south side of the county. So I think it's a good deal. It's just diving in and starting the first one, I think.
maybe it'd be a good idea to piggyback off some of these small town meetings. I know I was invited to go out to Gayville on Monday night, and I couldn't make it, but maybe that would be an option, is to try to piggyback with some of these local towns or boards when they're
Yeah.
meeting, and then, just so it's not an extra meeting for those guys, so.
Okay.
Why don't we look into that, Joe, and come back to us at next meeting. So, anything else on that topic?
No.
All right, moving on. Next item on the agenda, item number 10, direction for Planning Commission. Joe?
We kind of touched on this before. In the planning and zoning, we discussed ordinances that have high numbers of variances to them. And accessory structures was identified as being one of them. Swimming pools was brought up as, I don't know if that necessarily had a lot of variances, but I think the question was asked, why do we care about swimming pools in an ag district? So,
I think that's in all the districts,
Yeah,
swimming
yeah.
pools is a conditional use.
So, based off of the discussions in planning and zoning, we kind of talked about it too at the last commission meeting. I think we need to set a direction and a aggressive goal, and probably task the planning and zoning. And I guess I would recommend that we look at accessory structures and swimming pools, maybe by the end of March.
To have a recommendation?
Have a recommendation anyway. That's coming around the corner, but, you know, I think we can set that goal. We also are gonna have to start looking at the comp plan and set a goal there. I don't know, we need to get on updating some of these things. We spent how many years working on the previous comprehensive plan and have zero to show for it, so.
Okay. Did you want to touch on subcommittees too, or did anyone else like to say something about the accessory structures and the swimming pools? Okay. Did you want to go over the subcommittees?
Yeah, you know, something I had thought about is, once we kind of get more into this and get direction and start, maybe we pull apart different ordinances, and we, as planning and zoning, possibly, you know, break into smaller groups, smaller subcommittees, and we can pull in experts in the field of each ordinance to work within those small groups. They can kind of go through that ordinance, make recommendations and changes, and then bring that back to the planning commission, and then we could have, you know, public discussion at that time. But it just seems like if we do plan on, you know, doing a comp plan and cleaning up some of these issues, we need to figure out a way to be more efficient with that, at what we're doing.
Okay.
So I don't know what people's thoughts are on that. And that's something we'd have, you know, discuss in planning and zoning, but.
Yeah. Did you want, you wanted that recommendation to be given to the planning commission for the next meeting, right?
Yeah.
So, I guess we'll, to the accessory structures in the swimming pools, is everybody okay with that being the marching orders for the planning commission? It was have a recommendation on accessory structures and swimming pools by, was it March 30th or?
Well, yeah.
What is it? I guess let's
when is our
do it,
meeting?
and then I guess we'll make a motion on that. That'll be the direction, because they meet next week.
That's
So-
only two meetings.
So I guess
as from now.
what I envision there is that you guys discuss it and you get a plan and some language put together. So at the April Planning Commission meeting, we have a public hearing and go through the proper adoption for
Yes, yes.
amending the ordinance.
right.
So what you're doing
Yeah.
is you're getting all your numbers, whether we go from an accessory structure of 1,200 to 1,500, those changes are decided by the end of March.
Right.
So the language can be proposed, presented at the Planning Commission meeting in April, then it goes on to the County Commission after that, if it is approved. Just so we're clear on the
Yeah.
timeline.
I think this is just
Pretty
recent.
fast. That's pretty fast if you're gonna address a lot of things.
Well, we're just looking at accessory structures.
Yeah.
And that seems to be, you know how many variances are given on those. And I think that will be a very involved discussion by the people, especially out in our lake area, who tend to be the ones requesting those variances. So I'm sure there's lots of ideas for what we need to do.
And it may be that there has to be additional meetings, you know, to
And if
make that
it
too,
slips
so.
a month, then it slips
Yeah.
a month, but at least we have a plan going forward that there is some urgency to start rolling.
I think Pat printed off 35 variances on accessory structures in the last handful of years. Some were denied, some were given, and we, I think, need to either get out of it or be consistent or, you know, something.
Right.
And that's, I
Well,
guess, not
variance,
just me.
variance by definition is a change from the normal, right?
Yes.
And so that's an expectation, that you'll have variances when you have rules. It's
Sure.
not a bad thing, but I agree that standardization and some consistency in how it's done is important.
Right. Yep.
So we'll task you, Joe, with giving the direction for the Planning Commission on those. Is everybody okay with that?
Yes.
Okay. All right. We already discussed subcommittees, conflict of interest for the Planning Commission. Did you want to take this, Joe, or?
Sure. I guess regarding Planning Commission, I don't think we operate under that the way we do at the County Commission. At the beginning, we have a state of conflict of interest or financial conflict of interest. That does not happen during the planning and zoning. And I think we need to be clear that if you have, during planning and zoning, during drainage, during anything, if you have a conflict of interest or financial conflict of interest, not only do you abstain from voting, but you abstain from the discussions.
I have seen boards where they ask them to leave the room. So they aren't in the room to influence in any fashion. If you read minutes from Lincoln County, Minnehaha County, they will specifically say Commissioner Lose left the room, the discussion was had, Commissioner Lose came back to the room. Do we need to go to that degree? Maybe. But I certainly feel it is in everybody's best interest if Sherry Loest has a project that she wants a variance for, Sherry Loest shouldn't be sitting here in the room. And I certainly shouldn't be chiming in at all. And I think that's just a good precedent to set, to be on the safe side.
Rob, do you see any issues with that, establishing that for the subcommittee boards, zoning and planning and drainage?
Again, when Sherry said to have them leave the room, I don't know, I think that's a nice
Okay.
recommendation.
Okay.
Is that, you know, like you said, maybe just mere presence of being there, being uncomfortable to rule against somebody.
Sure.
Who may have comments or motions or movements or, you know what I mean?
It's like being at parent-teacher conferences with your child sitting there, so the teacher's not quite as honest. So,
I think that's acceptable.
Okay. Would we need a motion on that? Okay, so is there any other discussion that we would like to have on that? It would be adopted for both the zoning and planning board and the drainage board? I think really any sub-board that we would have, I think should probably
and the
follow
county
this.
commission.
Well, we already have that,
But do we enforce leaving the room?
we certainly can do that.
Yeah,
It's a good idea.
I think so.
Okay.
So,
So,
I guess I'll try to put this in a succinct motion. I move to declare any and all conflict of interest at the beginning of the meeting, and when the discussion comes to fruition, the person exits the room until a decision is made, and then they are allowed to come back into the room.
And I'll second.
Motion and a second. Further discussion.
Who determines whether there's a conflict of interest?
Majority of the board.
To date, it's always been ourselves. And
Like
I
if a
think maybe if
majority of
we
the board
amend
goes.
that to a financial conflict of interest, maybe, would that make more, I don't know. It's less gray.
it could be my sister's developing a project. I have no financial interest, but I certainly love my sister.
It's true.
Well, I'm going to give me as an example. I've had numerous people say I have a conflict of interest since I work for First Dakota. Yet none of them know I haven't worked for First Dakota for a year and a half. I'm still here. So all of a sudden, is somebody going to say, you got to leave? You're going to challenge me and say, you got to leave because you have a conflict of interest?
Would it be fair if you brought the conflict of interest up and we decided as a group? Do you think that would, I mean, I don't see that as conflict of interest.
What do you think on that, Rob? What would be your advice?
Well, I'm sure Sherry and Danny kind of both have the rules. You can individually do it, or the board as a group can decide you have it also.
Okay.
I don't know anything
Okay.
about that's the rule.
There could be an example where there is a conflict of interest and somebody says they don't, but the majority of the board thinks that they do, and then that would be when the board would have to vote that you do have a conflict of interest, and I think that would cover both situations.
So, not to be a stinker on properties. You're going to kick the one out that's got the conflict of interest, and then you got 4
Yep,
to vote.
yep.
So you could have a 2-2.
It may happen.
Well, and on the Board of Adjustment, I mean, we already have that stated at the beginning of the meeting. You know, we all, it doesn't go into the depth of leaving the room, but we all, you know, state if we have a conflict of interest or financial conflict of interest. I guess this, we sort of escalated, but the intention was that on planning and zoning, you know, if I'm sitting on planning and zoning and I'm invested in a development that we're looking at, I should probably disclose that. Or if, you know,
Anyway, Don said that if there was a conflict of interest, it'd be a 2-2. Well, maybe 2 people have conflict of interest, then it'll be 3, so.
right. And I think on the
It'll be
drainage
out
board,
again.
I mean, if it's your drainage permit, you can't sit up there and, as on the board, can
Yeah.
you?
All right, so we had a motion and a second. Further discussion? Roll call vote, please.
Don,
Yes.
Gary,
Yes.
Sherry,
Yes.
Joe,
Yes.
Dan.
Yes. Motion pass. Next item on the agenda, item number 11, update on administrative review of the zoning ordinance. Joe Healy.
Okay, this was brought up, requested by Phil Taw sometime back, and I apologize, we have not really picked up and ran with this, kind of discussed what the plan of attack is. He requested, because the zoning ordinance available to the public online was not up to date, and there was questions on the process, he had requested an audit at one of the meetings, as well as numerous people had also requested that via phone call, email, etc. So what we have discussed doing, and I think we just need to maybe get final final decision and move forward with it, but Pat has put together all of the changes since 2009 with, first reading, second reading, all the required things. He has that all pulled from the auditor's office and ready for review. So I think we probably need two of us, and I don't know if Rob needs to be involved or not, but just sit down, go through and make sure that everything was done properly. We'll audit the procedure. We need to have a report put together with our findings, any corrective actions, and a plan going forward to keep this from happening again. Along with that, I think we need to develop some sort of a policy on what official documents are posting online and how to post them.
Okay.
And I would say we need to do that and have our recommendations by the next meeting.
Yes.
And
We want to
just
find,
move forward.
yeah, we want to find where the process stopped working and why it didn't, we didn't have an updated ordinance posted online, and to avoid that happening in the future. So,
I had already volunteered to assist Joe
Yep.
in that, and now that I'm not in jury duty the rest of the week, I have nothing else to do
Okay.
but help Joe with reviewing that, so.
We'll look for a resolution on that at the next meeting, then from, you guys can give your report. Any of the other commissioners like to add anything to that? Okay, well, we'll get that from you guys next meeting. All right, next item on the agenda, item number 12, advertise for planning and zoning 2019 membership openings. Pat, is he here?
Yeah, he's in the back.
All right.
Okay, so this is for the appointments for the new terms that start in April. In Article 17, we do have a pretty explicit 1705. Section 1705 is quite clear about planning commission appointment and terms. This will touch on what Sherry talked about at the last meeting, but real quickly, it's just a paragraph. So the Yankton County Commission shall appoint a planning commission as provided in South Dakota Codified Law 11-2-2. The Yankton County Planning Commission shall consist of an odd number of members, including at least one county commissioner. The term of each appointed members of the County Planning Commission shall be for 3 years, provided that when the Planning Commission is first appointed, the lengths of the term shall be varied so that no more than 1/3 of the term shall expire in the same year. Any appointed member of the County Planning Commission may be removed for cause after hearing prior expiration of their term by a majority of the vote elected members of the Board of County Commissioners. Administrative officials of the county may be appointed as ex officio members of the commission. So what we're referring to at this point here is that this is in the concept that Sherry was talking about. We have 4 members coming up, and currently have a 9-member board, so that is more than 1/3. And so what we will need to do is probably, considering that we did change the lengths of the terms over the last few years from 13 and then 11 and then 9, start to adopt the process of a new commission. In other words, break the terms down for their nominated times. Joe and I discussed this at length a little bit to try and come up through the math, and it would be dictated a bit on what we decide for the membership, but we could break it down to where of the people that come aboard, 3 of them would be on the 3-year term, so then that would set it so that in 22, we're back to three people, 1/3, and then for year 20, one of those individuals would be on a 1-year term. And then we have individuals, and then we'd have 2, 2, and then 3 and 3, and we're in the sink again. That's based on 9. If we go to 11, or that discussion develops, then we've done the math for those 2, so that we can break those down So we would have some of the commissions that would be appointed would be broke down to 1 year. And then depending on what we do with the total number will dictate what 21, 22, and 23 would be. So, and they're very specific. This is codified law, so it's a shall on both of them. It's a shall that they shall be 3 years, and it's a shall that they shall be 1/3 of the commission at a time. And anytime shall is stated in a codified law, that means that is definitive versus may. So with that being stated, I want to refrain from, I'll say this publicly, but I think we spend plenty of money with the P&D. This is not an advertisement, this is a public service announcement. And so we treat it as a public service announcement, and we do a paragraph, and we did provide you with the paragraph of how we would do it. And so the public service announcement would be released, and we could start February 6th, or it won't be tomorrow, but we can release it February 6th and get it running. And then we have what we want, and by March 13th at 5 p.m., everybody would have their applications. The application is quite simple. We like them at least on legible paper. We have gotten them on napkins, but we like them to be, we request to serve on the Yankton County Planning Commission. Thank you for consideration. If they want to elaborate on that more, they certainly may. They can give us their background. They can give us reasons why they'd want to be. I would say in a recommendation that the more elaboration, the more you have a chance of appealing to the commission. But it is as simple as that. Currently, like I say, the 4 commissioners that are up are Butch Becker, Dan Guthmiller, Jeff Goodall, and Carl Kretzinger. And so we could get started, and then that would put us in a position for March 19th for the county commission to make the vote for that, and the recommendation for the single year and then the 3-year. That replicate what we discussed earlier, Joe, as far as what we have? Okay. Any questions?
You just need a motion to go ahead and advertise.
Yes. Yep, we can
One
continue.
thing I'd like to add is I think when we are advertising for positions on the planning commission is we have a lot of stuff that we have to do, and it may become more than 1 meeting a month. It might become a couple a week if we're going to do an aggressive strategy. And I think people who are volunteering to be on this board need to realize that we're gonna ask a lot of them, and we're gonna work them hard. And I want them to go in knowing that, and so that we hopefully get the right applicants, and they're willing to work hard for the good of Yankton.
So would you like to be an additional sentence in there then that
I don't think so. I
currently meets
just-
the second Tuesday,
Do you
but
wanna
that
add
we
that
would
in?
also.
Actually, Pat, I think that's a good idea, just to let them know the first
we
year,
may do
maybe
special
first 2
meetings?
years,
Yep.
there could be additional meetings you're
that,
required to
that
attend.
it can require special meetings?
I think that would be wise.
Okay.
We just want people to know what they're getting into ahead of time, so.
Otherwise, I thought the wording looked good.
Yeah, it looks very good. You wanted a motion to approve this, is that correct, Pat?
It would approve that to do the PSA for planning commission membership.
And when did you say you were going to start advertising?
I would release it tomorrow.
Okay.
And so they're pretty good. They'll probably have it in Friday, Saturday.
Okay.
We asked for them to do it, we'll ask for them to do it like probably about 4 times, 5 times until March. We'll take it right up to the March. We're asking for these applications to come in till March 15th. So we've got a month. So I'd like to see it.
March 13th is what you're-
15th, March 15th, because March 19th, you'll make your decision. And that'd be the Friday, or before your or your county commission meeting.
Your letter here says March 13th. All applications must be received by 5
Okay.
p.m. Wednesday, March 13th.
We have it down for March 15th on this one.
Okay.
Good.
So we would take, and so we'll release it tomorrow, and then, like I say, that's Wednesday, it'll probably be in, could be on Thursday or Friday's paper, and then try and run it every few days thereafter. And if we looked at our calendar right, we would say March 15th, we could accept them until that time, and then get them scanned, and then be in your packets.
Fine.
And then you'd be ready for your March 19th meeting. In the meantime, then we'll have to continue to talk about membership numbers.
Sure.
Okay.
And Pat, you need to know tonight if it's 9, 11, or 13?
No.
Oh.
No, I don't need to know that now, but I just want you to understand the process so that when we, at the next meeting or the following meeting, we will have to do that. We can do that clear up to the 19th for that matter. March 19th, we can make that final decision and then appoint them. But I think it'd be beneficial the sooner they know how many members we're looking at too. It would allow the public.
I move to approve a public service announcement for advertising membership to the Planning Commission.
Second.
With,
I got a motion and a second. Further discussion.
do we need to put in that amendment that you want?
The
Do we need to
additional
put that
sentence.
additional, that amendment to this letter you have in here in that motion, or?
Just, I wrote it down already
Okay.
that we will have the special meetings in that sentence that, yes, that's fine.
I have a motion and a second. Further discussion. All those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed? Motion passed. Next item on the agenda, update on online zoning ordinance. Item number 13.
I don't know, we're still in the process of, I don't have a good answer for you. I don't know what to say. I'll cooperate and do what we need to do.
I think we should probably wait until we get your guys',
Yeah, I think we
Let's-
roll that into kind of that.
after your update and your review. If it works out like it's going to, then I think we should do
Well, I
the
think we'll-
online thing.
Part of that review, we will have a recommendation for online
Okay.
publication at that
'Cause-
recommendation.
I would say at our next meeting, we can certainly set a date to get it done.
Okay.
We'll have a
Because
that
I,
went through and feel comfortable that we should get it out online.
That work for you, Pat?
yes.
Okay.
I just have one suggestion, and that is that let's be encompassing. If we're looking at social media, we're looking at other entities there. With that policy, what department is going to be responsible for that policy? What department will be, the way that it has worked, I feel that if independent departments are responsible, then let's make that clear, or do we have one department that we submit the materials to and then they're responsible for maintaining that website, social media, da-da-da-da. And then how is that updated? How is that conducted? How is what's the policy for returning it? We get an amendment, how fast do we make that happen? Who puts it on there? There's quite a few questions. So that's, with that, and then we know where we're going.
Any other questions for Pat? Thank you. Next item on the agenda, item number 14, state legislature update.
I don't know, I just wanted to mention a few of the bills. There's about 400 to 500 of them, and I scanned through all of them. There were two talking about referendums to change the 20-day notification. So once you pass an ordinance, it's published, you have 20 days to petition. There were a couple hoping to change that, one to 50 days, which was defeated. There is a second one still alive, and I think it's 35 days, so that's there. There's one about absentee voting from 46 days before the election to 14 days. That's still alive. There's a couple with CAFO excise taxes. One of them would divert 50% of the excise tax to the county. The other one would divert 100% of it to the schools, either their general fund or a special education fund. There are about 4 on wind. One of them has to do with the setbacks, which would be 12 times the height from a building, or 1,500 feet, or 3 times the height from the property line. So those are a lot further than our current ordinances are, and they are still alive at this point. Many of the late bills haven't even been read in committee yet. There was one on aircraft detection. There is one that is extending the review time for the PUC from 6 months to a year. There's one on decommissioning. So if a wind turbine is abandoned, there's a state law that says they have to decommission it, and there's a bunch of financials around it. There are two that deal with county sales taxes. One of them is 0.5%, and it's solely for buildings, jails, courthouses, incarceration reduction facilities. The other one is a 1% that would only be on dining, alcohol, and hotel, and again, it's kind of targeted to courthouses, jails, protection dollars, and law enforcement and things like that. There are two bills for unobligated money that the state ends its budget with. Usually that goes into, I think it's called the Budget Reserve Fund for the governor to spend. There's one that says 25% has to go into the Bridge Improvement Grant Fund. There's a separate one that says to transfer some of that back to the counties. Will the state pass those bills? Like I said, these are out there, but certainly, and then there's two more. One of them is ag land assessment for non-crop land. So if you have land that's assessed as tillable, but it's been in pasture for 10 years, they may start assessing that as non-crop land. And then the last one is the motor fuel tax. Right now, there's $700,000 that goes to the counties and townships. They're proposing to change that to $1.5 million. So those are just a few that caught my eye that, you know, if you roll the dice and it comes up in your favor, maybe we'll see some help on that, but they got a long ways to go.
E30.
I think that got passed. That passed when we were up there in Pierce.
I missed that one, so. Anyway, just a little update that there's things happening in Pierre, and if you're interested in any of those, I'd gladly give you the bill numbers so you can call our representatives.
Thank you, Sherry. Next item on the agenda, item number 15, liability and property insurance quotes. Roger Smith and Sherry Loest.
I think he's separate through here.
Welcome, Roger.
Before I talk,
They each have these.
oh, good, I brought some
Yep.
extras, okay. Before we do that, though, one thing we need to do, the workers' compensation policy is done and paid in force, but workers' compensation in South Dakota, like most states, does not cover volunteers. So Paul Scherschlick in his department has many volunteers. Your policy is set up right now to include coverage for volunteers as if they're an employee. And the previous commissions have always, not always, recently, agreed to cover those volunteers. It's already in your policy, it's already been paid for, but what we have to do is, and I'll pass out the list of many, many people that Paul has in his department. You just have to approve that they're covered under your workers' compensation. I've got enough for all of you. And Paul, I think, is the only one in the county that has this many volunteers for sure, but volunteers at all. But that's his list. It is emergency management, search and rescue. It's just a matter of saying we agree that these people should be covered, or are covered, under Yankton County workers' compensation. That's just, I guess, a motion you agree to include them. You know, it goes from emergency management to search and rescue to the chaplains to the Skywarn people. There's 14 pages there. Some of them aren't full. Skywarn, there's Emergency Operations Command. And some of these names on here are on there more than once, so that's not, it's not all. I mean, I think they're on one and maybe on another, but they don't have to, we just have to have their name. Paul just has them set up on different departments. There's a critical incident stress management group, the crisis chaplains and so forth. And if they're not on this list and get injured, then they're not covered. That's about that simple. Paul, if they delete them, it's no big deal because it doesn't cost or save you any money. If he adds them, we need to get them added and get them on the list. If you have a flood, tornado, blizzard, and he calls people out, volunteers out, then they would be covered just as your employees would be by South Dakota statute. It's not a Yankton County thing. It's a South Dakota statute. So you just need, I would guess, to approve to include them, or not.
This is paid up right now.
It's all paid, it's done, it's all, yeah, but it's just got something that has to be done. I just got the list from Paul yesterday. It's in your policy, it's covered and paid. If you say, no, we're not going to do it, I think the return of premium would be not very much. They don't charge you much because they, first of all, aren't called very often, or secondly, don't get hurt. Any questions, Diane?
I'd entertain a motion to approve insurance for our volunteers.
So moved.
Second.
Motion and a second. Further discussion?
So, you have no idea what the costs and for the volunteers?
You know, I don't, Gary, I think it's less than $1,000 for all of them.
Just so we have a.
Per year, yeah, it's not very much, yeah.
These people
For
are.
everybody.
Yeah.
That's everybody.
Okay.
Yeah.
I think that's a bargain if we need them. It's a
Yeah,
bargain.
absolutely.
If somebody's working for us for
Get injured.
very little, that's the least
Yeah.
we can do. So
You can either get volunteers or hire it done, and you can't afford to do that.
Exactly. So, all right, if a motion and a second, further discussion. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, motion pass.
And I'll turn it over to Sherry. We had a meeting a couple weeks ago. Sherry, it's your,
I'm on the hot seat.
yes, not
All
necessarily.
right, so you each have quotes EMC, and if at any time, Roger, I
Yes.
misspeak, please cut me off. Yep, EMC is our current provider for liability and property insurance. So you can see the quote is for just under $150,000. It's $149,997. Roger, what was it last year?
About 130,
130. I forgot to write
right
that
at
down.
130.
Why did it go up?
Go ahead, Sherry.
Well, several lawsuits. This is our liability coverage. Last year, our deductible for getting sued was $2,500. This coming year, it's $10,000. Wow. The insurance company did not give us a choice in that. I'm sure if we begged them, they would probably double the price for insurance. So going forth, whenever we have to use liability insurance, it's going to cost the county $10,000.
Now, that's your public official liability, not your general liability, not your auto liability, not your, but it's just
Right.
your
Thank you for
public official liability.
Thank you for clarifying
Yeah.
that.
Is that
Yep.
per suit? Or
Yes,
that's for every
Per claim,
per claim.
direct for your public official, not auto, not general liability, not work comp.
Per
just-
person?
No, per claim.
No, there's 5 commissioners, most lawsuits, name all 5.
Yes, but it's 10,000 per claim,
Okay.
not per person.
Yep, so the other is another insurance company here, South Dakota Public Assurance Alliance. Their quote is $163,000, which is higher. And note at the bottom, you have, can I call it back insurance?
Look back.
Look back insurance.
Tail
So-
coverage, whatever you want to call it, yeah.
In essence, if we get sued today for something that happened 2 years ago, and we have switched insurance companies, who's liable? Because we're insured with EMC 2 years ago, and now we're insured with this company. So what they have at the bottom is for 3 years to go back and cover your behind is another $65,000. If you want to go back 5 years, it's another $75,000. So for me, there's no question which insurance company we need to stick with. EMC is obviously cheaper, just the base price of the policy, not including the look-back insurance that we would have to pay for as well. So, you know, at this point, I don't think there's really too much discussion over which one to go with.
Much. That, just curious, that look back, is that per?
That's
per
one,
year, is that a
one time, one time. One time up front first year. That's it, yeah. I've told Sherry, I'm not sure, I don't know the feelings from all past commissioners or this commission, but EMC Insurance Company has a really good group that handles these liability claims. They're proven, they've done a lot, they do it for a lot of counties. And I don't know, I guess with the public school, the South Dakota Public Alliance, they may have the same group, they may have a different group, but I think I don't know what I call success, I just think the working habits of the EMC group the attorneys in Sioux Falls, that's who they hire, are very good. Price is a big deal, but I think more importantly, you want to make sure you got somebody that's fighting on your side and has experience in doing it. And these guys and gals do, the one they use. So
Now, these prices we're looking, those are pretty comparable plans, the liability limits and things like that.
yeah, deductible's about the same. I don't know that the Public Insurance Alliance has a deductible on their I don't know that on their policy.
Like liability limits and.
The liability number's the same. They're $1 million lower than EMC. They're $5 million. EMC is $6 million. That's not a big deal, but maybe some thousands of dollars. But there's a difference there. It's not apples for apples, but it's about as close as you can get for apples for apples. And just so you know, your policy with EMC is enforced January 1, so the clock is running, and it has been. And if you make a switch, it can be done. It's not impossible to do it. But you are covered, have been covered with EMC until this meeting tonight, and you decide which way you want to go forward.
Do you need a motion to approve, Sherry?
Sherry, I just got a question. Go back to this $10,000. Is that effective now? Is it retroactive? Is it?
It should be for 2019.
January 1.
Yeah.
January 1, okay. So all the lawsuits,
In the past.
what they are, they're $10,000 each time.
That's right.
So if we got 10 of them right now, we
That's
got
right.
100,000.
Well, the ones that have been filed prior to January 1, there's a number of them, as you know. Those are all 2,500 deductible. Those have all been resolved, or not resolved. Those are all in motion.
And anything from January
Anything
1,
here on January 1 forward.
10,000 each.
That's right.
Okay.
Yep.
Thank you.
Do you need a motion to approve this one? Entertain a motion to approve the insurance quote.
I make a motion to approve the quote for EMC insurance for 2019.
Second.
Motion and a second. Further discussion. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion
Okay.
carries. Thank you, Roger.
We'll get it moving. Thank you very much. Any questions, you can call me individually if you have questions. Thank you.
Next item on the agenda, item number 16, selection of highway superintendent, Don Kettering and Sherry Loest.
Sure, go ahead.
What? I've been talking this whole time, Don. You've been quiet over there. I keep looking your way.
Don's thinking about warm beaches.
Oh, yeah. There were 5 applications for highway superintendent position. Don and I interviewed all 5 of those gentlemen. And then Joe and Dan interviewed 3 that we picked out from that pool. And we're certainly open to discussing, but of those, the gentleman who spoke earlier tonight, Mike Solachek, is the person I would recommend for the job of the 5 applicants that we received.
And I concur with that recommendation by far.
And if anybody else has any thing they want to say, if you saw another candidate who you felt was strong, certainly this is the time to bring that up.
I'd like to say we were really blessed to have so many very qualified applicants that applied for it, and it was a tough choice when you have that many high caliber people. So it was a tough choice, and we appreciate everybody for applying, but I guess we can only pick one.
Can I ask you how many places that you advertised this announcement? How many different states? Like, did you go in a 5-state area? Did you go throughout the whole United States?
You know, Gary, I can't answer that because it was advertised in December, and I didn't advertise it.
Or was it just advertised locally done?
Just that job service.
Job service.
Yeah, and then the counties in South Dakota, it was sent to the different counties.
Just basically
In
South Dakota then?
Yeah. Like the county auditor was sent to them
Well,
to distribute.
you know, I've been around here for 2 years, and Don's been here longer, but I've had a lot of constituents tell me, and I didn't interview these people. I don't know Mike very well. I don't have anything personal against anybody, but I've had a lot of voters say, we'd like to see somebody brought in from outside and promotions from within. I know myself. I've worked for 50 years and I've seen it. There's sometimes problems. You get somebody from outside, they've got new ideas. And I want this in the record that I've said this because, like I said, a lot of people have called me, talked to me, and they've almost begged me to hire somebody from the outside with different experience from Chicago or New York or Atlanta or someplace. Not trying to diminish Mike or anybody else, nothing personal, but I want to make sure that the voters are satisfied with our selection. And I'd like to see this re-advertised again. I know that Mike's been wearing 2 hats, but I've worked in places where people had to wear 2 hats for 2 years. And so I don't feel comfortable. Mr. Gusted only resigned in the middle of December. So that's what I needed to say because, like I said, the voters that I've talked to, they want somebody from outside.
Thank you, Gary. Any other commissioners have any comments?
I think one thing I will say is I worked in a few jobs in my lifetime, and I worked for some bosses I felt needed a little improvement. And when they moved on, and when I applied for their job, I wanted whoever was interviewing me to look at me, not how the department was run when I was in the department, and the potential I had to run the department. And I don't know Mike real well, but I certainly have been getting a call from him about every other day, and we've been talking and stuff. And I think that he does have a vision for going forward. I am certainly there to help him get the vision that he sees for his department, and I will help him every step of the way because his success is our success, because it's the largest, other than the jail, they are the largest function of our community, and stepping forward and trying to improve relations is key here.
Second your comments, Sherry, but also add that my experience has been a little different than Gary's. I've had tremendous luck in hiring people that have been in the area that know the area, know the conditions, know the roads, know the cultures of the people, have a basis to build relationships with customers, and I'm totally comfortable with Michael as a choice.
One thing that I'd like to add, I guess, is the cost to train somebody is astronomical, and I think Mike can walk right into it. That's, I think he's capable. The other applicants that I interviewed, I was confident that they could do the job, but not as quickly, walk in and pick up the reins, I guess. And so I see that as a cost benefit for us.
Entertain a motion to approve Don and Sherry's recommendation for selection of highway superintendent.
I think we also have to discuss pay. If I'm not mistaken, Patty had said that we needed to discuss pay. So if we choose to move forward with Mike Solacek, currently he's making about $61,000. He's making $29.39 an hour, and is that about what you did when you punched it?
I was thinking 59 is where he's at.
I probably used more hours than you did. What hours do you normally use when you extrapolate out to a yearly salary? 40 hours a week?
For them, yeah.
52 weeks?
They're 8-hour days, yeah, that'd be.
This thing probably has a
Yep.
calculator on it, but I don't know.
Yep, so it's $61,131.20 is what I came up with, is where he's currently at. I did look to see where the previous superintendent would have been had he stayed. He would have been at $63,000 $1.34. So Mike's about $2,000 under that right now. So what I would recommend if we move forward to hire Mike is to keep him at his current salary for 6 months. And at that point, to bump him up to $63,000.
Keep him at his current salary now.
Based
Yes.
on acceptable performance.
Yes, it's not a motion yet, Don, so, but that's out there for discussion. Go ahead.
I'm sorry, he got $1 more an hour to be acting.
Oh, was that included in there? Oh,
think so.
Maybe that's
there's
where
the
the difference
59.
was.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So then it would be from about 59,000 to the 63,000.
Would he keep the $1 more? For the 6
Right now,
months?
yes,
he
right
should,
now,
yeah.
he would essentially stay at the 61
Okay.
right now, yes. Any comment?
That's
What did the ex-highway superintendent, what was he making?
63.
He
63?
would have been at
Okay.
63,000 in January, which
think-
is,
With the 2%.
yes, 2.5%, yes,
Okay.
yes.
For 6 months? I think that's a good idea.
I think I looked at some of the other department heads and things like that, it falls in line, might be a little higher than some of them, but I think the job duties are a little different.
He
too.
probably receives more phone calls than most of our other folks, so.
It's competitive in the state with other
It is.
superintendents.
Yep, from the 2017 salary survey, he, top 10. Certainly, I can't remember specifics on that. They are doing a new survey this year, so. And if there's no more discussion, I'll go ahead and make a motion.
And I'll second it.
I have a motion and a second. Further discussion. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Aye.
Motion pass. Next item on the agenda, item number 17, Commissioner updates. This is something we had added to the agenda. What the purpose of this little section here is if any of the commissioners have anything they'd like to discuss. It's going to be real short, try to keep it to just a few minutes, and there'll be no voting. So are there any updates that any of the commissioners?
one.
Okay, go ahead.
At the previous meeting, we talked about having Greg Hubner speak at the planning and zoning meeting next week, February 12th. We are going to change that to our March meeting. March 12th meeting. Thank you.
To March 12th?
Yes.
Okay.
And just update Don, he is from Avon, involved in the wind project over there. He's distributed a book throughout parts of Yankton. But he asked to speak to the planning and zoning board regarding ordinances and things like that. And so we thought, that would be fair.
Okay.
Certainly if the wind company would like to come speak too, we would allow that, so.
Okay. Do you have anything, Sherry?
No.
Joe and I attended Yankton Day in Pier last week. It was a great experience. We got to meet a lot of the department heads, and great to see the kind of relationship that Yankton has formed at our state level. And then Sherry and I went to Planning and Development District 3 in Mitchell on Thursday, and that was a great opportunity to see the Governor Home program, which has really taken off in the area. So that was good. Don, did you have anything?
No.
Okay. Gary, did you have anything you'd like to discuss? No. All right. Next item on the agenda, item number 18, public comment. Anybody care to make a public comment? Now would be the time to do so. Come on up. You got 3 minutes. Please introduce yourself.
Hi, guys. I'm Patty Gramco. I don't know Mike Sedlacek from anybody, but being in charge of roads, is he going to set his own, is he going to have his own budget? Basically, can you tell him to break his budget down pretty precisely into gravel, asphalt, sealant, so that that can be compared from year to year, get a really good specific budget going instead of a blob.
I will look into that and see
Okay.
what's currently there and see if maybe we can represent it differently.
There you go.
I'm sure the numbers are there, but sometimes how it's represented is confusing.
Okay.
Would that help?
Yes.
Okay.
Great. Perfect. I have another comment. In light of the opinion that was written yesterday in the paper, which was full of
Everybody.
it was full of untruths. I'm wondering how to approach that kind of an attack when it's untruth. If maybe each commissioner would like to put in their opinion instead of somebody out of our county, so that we have an accurate representation of what actually happened and not fabrication.
Thank you. Anyone else care to make a public comment? Come on up, sir. State your name. You got 3 minutes.
I don't know if I'll get it all in 3 minutes. Zane Williams from Irene. Transparency, I've heard that word a lot in this new commission, and I just don't think that happened here in the last meeting when on this change in the policy on this Class F. To be transparent, I feel that should have gone through the Planning and Zoning Commission, which I am a part of. Other people that I've talked to felt the same way. It was on the agenda as a discussion, but it appeared to have been a little bit more discussed because it didn't take long for you guys to come to a conclusion. And look back at the tapes, it was rather short, so it was already pretty much cut and dried. I've had several of my farmer friends, they asked me, they got 5 chickens, they have 2 horses, they got 2 ducks, 50 ewes. Cow-calf guys are calling, say, what does this law do to us? And I know Sherry said, well, we aren't going to worry about the 4-H caps. Where is that in the laws? So I can give them an answer. I have heard nothing out of this commission on that subject. And that is not being transparent. How will it be enforced? Have all the individuals who it affect, have they been able to give input? Has the state's attorney weighed in on this? Rob, have you weighed in on this? What is the fines in place for this policy change? And how will the new standards be determined? Those are usually done by a large board, and I guess you guys are going to be the judges too, but usually those are done in a planning and zoning situation. So transparent, I don't think it was.
I'll address just a couple of those real quick, Zane.
You bet.
So,
No.
unless it's changed, my understanding on the public comment section, we are not allowed as commissioners to respond.
Anyone else care to make a public comment? Come on up, state your name.
I may be wrong, Joe, but that's my
That's probably
understanding.
the best policy to have.
Yeah,
All right, you got 3 minutes?
Okay. Hi, I'm Christy Schultz. Basically, what they did was follow the zoning ordinance as written. There was confusion or a different interpretation of the way it was written in the first place, so they just clarified that. And as far as people worried about the livestock that they have right now, those livestock are already in place. So if you're going to perceive this as a change, then it would be those animals that are already in place would be grandfathered in, if you're perceiving it as a change. So if that will help anybody relax their fears, that's my opinion. I realize I'm not sitting on your board, But I have had extensive experience on the Planning and Zoning Board, and usually when something new is implemented, anything that happened previous is considered grandfathered in. On that topic of the Planning and Zoning Board, if the goal is to create committees, then I would strongly suggest that we increase the membership to 13 members. It's kind of an old adage, many hands make light work. And if we're going to be spending a lot of time, you know, in committees, in small groups to help escalate the process, then I think it would be beneficial to have more membership. And that's all I have for today. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Anyone else care to make a public comment? Come on up, state your name.
Louis Johnson, Volin. The grandfathered in, here's the question that was posed to me. I buy 8 head of calves in the spring. I turn them loose in my empty building site on the other farm. They keep the grass and the weeds down. I sell them in October. I don't have cattle again until May. Well, the next year I have bypass surgery, so I just let the weeds grow up for a year. Now, are they still grandfathered in, or do they have to get a conditional use permit every month? And I disagree with the many hands make light work. Seem like the bigger the committee, to me, it's harder to get an actual decision. And I realize Christie's been on, or she was on there for 12 years. In 12 years, if you couldn't get it clarified, kind of makes me wonder what you were talking about. And the other thing is that you had better be very, very careful of when you pick the new replacements. Make sure they're not all members of a special interest group. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else care to make a public comment? Going once, going twice. All right, we're going to close the public comment portion. I'd also like to announce that it looks like we do have a quorum of planning commissioners here as well. So just make that an announcement. All right, next item on the agenda is executive session. Entertain a motion to go into executive session.
I move we go into executive session.
Second.
Motion and a second. Further discussion. All those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed? Now in executive session.
That's very well either, so your wife won't improve.
I'm afraid to ask what you did to Rob.
Come back and find out.
You need some more positive.
All right, can I get a motion to come out of
So moved.
executive session?
Second.
Motion and a second. Further discussion. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passed. We are now in regular session. No actions were taken during executive session. Next item on the agenda, items for next meeting. We're going to do an administrative review. That's going to be completed, right? for the next
Report.
meeting?
Yeah.
Report?
Yes.
Are there anything else that we'd like on the next meeting? Anything else? All right, I entertain a motion to adjourn.
I'll make a motion, we adjourn.
Second.
Motion and a second. Further discussion. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.